Right. Yeah.
I was told there was a Baltikaya in East New York who had a dry goods store. He didn't talk to whole L. He had his store was open, he did business, he did not talk to whole L.
Wow. That's pretty good. I don't know, how do you do business?
I guess he wrote things down, I presume. I don't know.
I hear. Interesting. I guess if you're just taking orders, so you could do it.
His wife was in the store the whole L.
Maybe that's why he was.
I
hear.
Aaron, according to YouTube,
That would not be a
January
mile because there's many people who don't talk when their wife is around. So what's that's.
I was waiting for somebody to say that.
Well,
yeah. No, Parrots would be, but he's yeah, Parrots, what'd you come up with?
according to the YouTube, the channel started on the 5th of January. According to Wikipedia, the old Siyama Shas was over on the 4th of January.
Wasn't January 1st Thursday and it was on Sunday?
I don't know. They thought they
How many
did it a
years?
couple
2
days
years or
before.
3 years?
3 years ago.
2019, I think it was December 31st.
January 1st, 2019 or 2020?
19.
No, 2020.
No,
20.
we started 2020, January 4th or 5th.
January 1st was 2020 was a Friday. The scene was on a Sunday, the 3rd.
Is that how it goes? I don't know. I thought it was on January. I thought it was New Year's. Shows you how good our memory is.
1 second, I'm sorry. I was 2021.
Okay. Either way.
Countdown liner.
January 20th, 2020 was on Wednesday.
It was on a Wednesday. He's right. Wednesday.
Thank you, Naftali.
All right, let's go.
The
Yeah.
scene was on Sunday, no?
No, I think it was
on
on New
Wednesday?
Year's.
It was on New Year's?
Yeah. Only positive thing to come out of that stadium since then with the the Giants made the playoffs. Giants made the playoffs. Okay. Yeah. Anyways. So again, let's chazer over the sugya. So we're talking about that a naira who's engaged, naira hamurasa. So if she makes a neder, her father and her husband have to be matir the neder. If they both not matir it, then the neder stands. So if she doesn't like her neder, then they have to be matir it. They have 24 hours. That's a shiloh, 24 hours at the end of the day, right? But they have only that day. If they're not matir it, which you call mefer, if they're not mefer it that day, then the neder stands. So we were trying to figure out from which psukim do we know that they both have to, because there's basically three sets of psukim. The first one clearly says that the father's matir the daughter's nedarim before she's a naira, before she's engaged. The last one clearly says that the husband is matir nedarim once they're married. The question is in the middle, in the no man's land, where she is a naira marasa. Right? Yeah. So Devei Rabbi Yishmael Tana, top line on Samach Amud Aleph. So Devei Rabbi Yishmael had a different way of learning it. Again, we said yesterday that it said a lashon of im hayesiya leish. So hayesiya is a lashon of kedushin. So the passuk said that if excuse me, the passuk said that if she has kedushin to a guy, so then the guy is matir the neder, and we said the father also. So Rabbi Yishmael has a different shot. The Rabbi Yishmael Tana bein ish leishtoi bein av lebitoi. The pasuk says, but then there's when she makes a neder with it's between a man to his wife and with a father to the daughter. So what does that tell you? And then the rest of the pasuk says when she's a naira in the father's house. So what does that tell you? Mikan l'naira hameurasa shaviyu ba'ala mafirun nedera. That if you have a naira that's engaged, both her father and her husband have to be matir her nedarim. So now the Gemara asks, "Ulatana Devei Rabbi Yishmael, what does he do with the pasuk of im hayesiya leish my abed le?" What does he do with im hayasiya lish? Again, yesterday we said that im hayasiya lish tells us that that's a lashon of kiddushin, and that when she has kiddushin, their husband has to be matter the neder too. But Rabbi Yishmael doesn't need that. So what does he do with it? So he says, Maikim li'idach the Rabba. It's either Rabba or Rabba, depending on which girsa you want. So he's going to say that's talking about a different case of Rabba, which is going to be on in Tuesday's Daf Hashem, which Rabba says that there's a case where she could have gotten married, meaning engaged, meaning the first level of marriage. Then she got divorced, or she lost her husband, and then somebody else goes and is thank you. Then somebody else goes and was Makadish her. So she had two husbands, right? So Rabba says when by the first marriage the father had to be mated the neder. So the second marriage he also has the koyach to be mated the neder. So that's what Rabbi Yishmael says the passuk is coming to teach. Fine, and then whereas the other way, Rabba Haidatani Devei Rabbi Yishmael my Avidle, and Rabba, who says he learns out from the pasuk Hayasiya Leish, what does he learn out from Rabbi Yishmael's pasuk of Bein Ish Leish Bein Av Levitoi? This we're going to see in a few blocks from now. But there's different types of nedarim that you could be. There's different types of nedarim that the woman can make. There's nedarim that are beinoi lebeina, meaning stuff that applies between him and her, and then there's stam stuff that applies to her. Meaning she makes a neder that she will not make supper anymore. So that's something that is negeya to the husband, right? And then you have stuff that's stam that she makes that has nothing to do with her husband. So basically, he's saying that we're learning out that the husband, is allowed to be matter any of these types of neder. Okay, fine. Okay, so now the Gemara has a shaila, and the answer is going to span almost a blot, but it's a very short blot due to the run, right? But it's a pretty wild case. There's a chart. The art scroll has a chart. When I see a chart, my mind just fizzles out. So I'm not a chart guy. But for those that have art scroll, they do have a chart. If your mind works with charts, give aldik. But the shaila is fairly straightforward. So Yibaylu. Again, we're talking about that when a girl's engaged and she's a naira, and she makes a neder, both her husband and her father have to be matter the neder. So let's say only one of them did it. So does that mean that the neder is split in half? Or does it just mean that the neder gets weakened? Right? Meaning, so let's see how it goes. Baal megas gayas. So the husband, when the husband is matter her neder, so now guy is from the word gez, to cut. Does that mean he cuts away half the neder? Miklish kalish, or it just weakens the neder because somebody was matter part of the neder.
Why can't it be nothing?
What?
Why can't it be all or nothing?
Well, that's sort of what do you mean?
Why it's either cut or weakened.
Or it's weakened because it
Why
happened.
can't it be nothing? Why can't it be either both of them agree?
Or no, because that's exactly what the Gemara is asking. When one does it, so now what happens?
Why
Nothing happens.
That's what I'm asking.
You need two to get rid of the neder, so nothing happens when one does.
Why can't one of that's
Why-
what I'm asking. One of the
Why did Mehikates anything happens?
You mean you're saying you and Naftali are agreeing? Wow.
Yeah.
So
You mean you mean skip the daf and just have nothing?
Why should anything happen?
Good point.
You need the two to break to get rid of the neder. So if
We
only
always
one
go
does,
over-
so nothing happens.
We always go over the different options, and maybe that's the answer. I don't know.
No, but it's
No,
interesting
I'm
because
saying
it
no
doesn't
option.
even it's not the answer, but it doesn't even give that option.
Right.
It's not even giving that option. Right.
Well, it's similar to the idea of shutfus, no? Two shutfim either own 100% of the whole thing each, or 50%.
Right.
The same idea. It takes two people
It's
to
not
do
the
it.
same idea. It's
Not the
nothing to
same
do with
idea,
shutfim.
similar idea.
There's
No,
nothing
but
to do with
either-
shutfim. Torah says you need the chassan and the father to break. They don't have the chassan and the father, so it stays. The neder stays. It's like not a big. Why is it a complicated thing? I don't know. We have to make everything complicated. It's not complicated. You need
Because
the
we're
two
doing
of
everything
them-
to try
you
to
need
get
the
it.
two
So
of
we try
them-
to do everything to
You
try
need
to
the
get
two
someone
of
out of
them
it.
to break it. They don't. You only have one, so it's not broken. That's it. Kamanu.
Sorry. I'm trying to work with the Gemara.
Okay.
Could be,
so-
that's good kasha. But listen, it seems like the premise is that it's not like that. That the neder somehow takes away something. But you're right. I'm saying, where did that premise come from? So the Gemara is clearly thinking that is the way it works. That once one of them is matir neder, it does something. Yeah.
There's the nafkamina between these two. I mean, if you want to know the nafkamina is l'chayr the Ran and the Amud Aleph on the previous stop in the Amud Aleph used the svar of Miklesh Kalish to explain why if you're mefer if you're making a neder and then you make a shale on it, you remove it, that you can't go ahead and go back and be mefer. He's mechag between that and kedushin, where you have a nine kedushin. He says the difference is by kedushin you did a real ma'isa beforehand. Here, because it's kolish, it's not a real ma'isa. He uses the lashon kolish. The hainu, it's not that if each one was doing a real ma'isa by themselves, mechatesi to say that's svar.
You mean if each one
Was a ma'isa gomer, later you'd have you'd be dominate to kedushin.
right? Okay, I hear maybe. So 1 second. So the memela. So what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that I don't know what the Gemara comes out on Maskana. It better come out the way the Ron's learning over there, the way I'm understanding the Ron there. But if you hold it's Miklish Kolish, then it works out very well, the Ron's teretz. He's Mechak and Kedushin in that because by Kedushin you're doing a Ma'aser Gomer. And here you're not.
I hear. Oh, so we'll give you a spoiler alert. The Gemara comes out that it's a machlokes.
Oh. So I don't know. I don't know.
That shouldn't be
I don't know how the
surprising.
Ron can fit with that, sorry.
Right. So which either way you go, it's gonna. Okay, I hear you, Rakiv. I hear it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay, but either way, so the Gemara's premise, for whatever reason, is that it's something happens to the neder, even though even if only one of them does it. So the Gemara's shaila is it totally, does it split it in half or does it weaken it? Heichid kami ba'ila. So the Gemara continues to say, well, what is the shaila exactly? Kagoin, the Nadra mitrains zeis, and she made a neder that she's not going to have 2 olives. Right? I don't know if it means actual olives or it means that 2 olives worth of food. Right? I mean, I make this neder every time I sit down to eat. And you know what I mean? I mean, I don't make the neder, but I should make the neder. I shouldn't have 2 olives worth of anything. Doesn't go. But so anyway, she made a neder of 2 olives. The Shama Oros, and the husband heard about it. And he mated it for her. And then she went and ate it. But the father was not mated it, right? So meaning one did, one didn't. So if you say that you cut it up, so Lakia, she's going to get Malchus, right? Because granted, she didn't go against her neder because her husband mated it, but 1 olive went against her father's. Her father never mated it. Meaning, so basically she needs 2 people to be mated her neder, and she had 2 olives worth. 1 olive, we're going to say, okay, is mutter. You split it down the middle, right? You split the neder down the middle. 1 olive is it's hard to understand this. It's very hard to understand this. 1 olive was mater, the husband mater, and the other olive, the father didn't mater. So Ibazai, she's going to get Malchus because she went against the neder, which is so hard to understand because
So Yaakov,
the neder is the neder.
That's not how shuttas works. If you're trying to be madam at the shuttas, it's not how shuttas work.
No,
You each have half of the whole thing. You can't have half of half.
Right.
Otherwise, it doesn't work. You see, because Mechatesi, you made a neder on each olive by itself. But you could go ahead and split it like that.
Yeah. You're right. It's hard to understand. It's very hard to understand this. Because the neder is the neder. right? So one was mated, so therefore, okay, either way, but that's what the Gemara is saying. Iyamrina Megas guy, so lucky she's going to get malchus. The next part I also don't understand. In Iyamrina Miklish Kolish, if you just say that it just weakens the strength of the neder, so then Isura Ba'almahu, all it is an Isra Ba'alma. Right? So then so what's the din? Again, he's saying if it's they're like splitting each part of the neder, you don't split it half, meaning half the father gets and half the husband gets. So then one of them was matir, so now that weakens the neder, and that weakens it down to the point where if she's over on the neder, she doesn't get malchus. Why? Where does that come from? Right? One of them matir, but it's still a neder according to for the other one. Right? Meaning good, the husband matir the neder, fine, but the father didn't. But somehow that weakens the strength of the neder, and therefore she's not going to get malchus, but it's still going to be an issa. Okay, whatever's going on here. But those are the two tzadim again. When you have the father and the husband have to be matir the neder, if the first tzad is if one of them is matir it, the Ran says, by the way, it's lav dafka, because the Gemara says if the husband is the one that maters the neder and the father wasn't matir it, the Ran says it works the opposite also, meaning the father was matir it and the husband did not matir it. Right? But meaning either way, half did, half didn't. So the question is, when half didn't, does that still make, so that means half the neder is still there, or is the entire neder just weaker? That's the shiloh. So now the Gemara goes through Toshima, so what's it in Toshima? So now the Gemara brings this parsha, and it lasts all the way. The Gemara brings 5 different cases. Now, before we do that, there's a Mishnah coming up on Daf Ayin Amud Aleph that says that what happens if one of them dies. Right? Again, this girl is engaged to make and she makes a neder. Now she has a husband and a father. They both have to be matir the neder. And then one of them dies. So it's going to depend. So you think, okay, the same din should be if one of them dies, meaning whatever the din is, if the father dies, the same din should be if the husband dies. But no, that's not the way it rolls, right? The Mishnah, I don't know if the other one wants to turn to that Mishnah or not.
Dies, she falls back to the father.
Let's see. The Mishnah on Zion, I'll just read the Mishnah. 1 second. The Mishnah is going to say, Mesa Av, if the father dies, the power does not transfer to the husband.
Right. Probably all says Yoshua.
Right. And therefore, no, you can't be matir the neder. Finished.
Her brothers don't
So she's out. No, she's out. If she makes the neder, then her father dies, she's out. That neder has to be kept. Right? Even if her husband's matir the neder, but the father's not around, so he can't do it. But the opposite, meis habal, but if the husband dies, nisroikna reshus la'av, then the father does get the reshus to be matir the neder fully. Right? Again, that's an important point, and it's important. You've got to understand that basic thing in order to understand this next parsha. If the father dies, the husband cannot be matir the neder on behalf of the father. If the husband dies, then the father can be matir the neder on behalf of the husband. That's the basis. Now there's going to be 5 different scenarios the parsha is going to bring, and at the end of this parsha, that's where we're going to have our answer to the question over whether they break up the neder or not. If the neder is broken up or it's just weakened. Yes, so Toshima, Emasai Amru, when did we say Meis Habal Nisroikna Reshus La'av, that if the husband died, then the father gets reshus to be matir the neder on behalf of the husband. There's 3 scenarios here. It's talking, there's going to be 3 scenarios. That's only when the husband didn't hear about the neder before he died. Right? Again, the husband died here, and we're saying that the reshus goes into the father to be matir the wife's neder on behalf of the husband. I don't know if on behalf is exactly the right way of saying it, but for clarity's sake, that's the way we'll say it. Because I don't know if it's on his behalf, right? So when
if the Erison, he's a baal to her.
That's what it seems. Yeah, that's what it seems. Yeah. At least now it is.
What chiyuvim does he have to?
Nothing really.
So then what's
Nothing.
the milus?
He doesn't have to feed her only after a year.
So
or whatever the agreement is.
what's the milus of him?
I guess that's what Yishmael is asking. I don't know. Why is it called a baal? I
So
guess
if there's no chiyuvim, what's the milus?
I guess if you have the kayach to be mater her nedarim, that's a pretty good kayach. Because after Nisuin, you ain't have no kayach.
No, what I'm saying, the fact that he called a baal because on the osid, because in 2 months they're gonna have a big they're gonna have a chasana in the Marriott. That's why he's called the baal.
Maybe it's
So
called the baal.
if he dies before, so he never became her baal. That's what I'm saying. He's not a baal now, like you said, Yaakov. There's nothing to do with her. Well,
Right. I hear.
Wait a minute.
There's a chiyuv ksuba from Erison.
She's also
Correct. But he has no shibudim to her.
Except the ksuba.
and she's also to the
Well,
world.
that's if he divorces her, or he divorces her, he dies. He has to give the ksuba.
Well, he did die in this case.
In this case, he died. Correct.
And she's also to the world, no?
that's
She's also
something else.
She's an HSish. She's an HSish, yeah.
There's no shibud in there.
There are no shibudim, but I guess he's called the Baal als being he came out to her nedarim.
Try to understand why.
I mean, why did the Torah say that that he has a right to be matter nedarim if he has no other shibudim to her? I don't know. You're going to say that that's the psukim. That's what the Torah says, right?
So that's another chiddush. It's another chiddush in Bailus. And even in Armorosa, there is still some Bailus of the Baal over, but it's not full Bailus, as if they had Nisuyin already. This whole business of Bailus is such a chiddush over here. So here's a new chiddush that if if he dies, and then the father still has some Bailus over the girl. It's you have to look at it as a chiddush in Bailus. I think, and it's much easier to understand.
Right. Okay, I hear. I didn't think about the lashon of the Baal here, but yeah. Okay, so look at it. So let's see. So again, Amasai Amru Meis Habal Nisroikin Rishus La'av. When do we say that if the husband dies, then from the word Nisroikna, by the way, it's from like empty, literally rake. From 2 weeks ago's parsha about rake and by Maya, it was empty. Nisroikna Rishus La'av. He empties out his permission to the father. So Bisman Shalashama Habal Kaidam Shayamas. That's only if the husband didn't hear about the neder before he died. Right? Oi Shashama, or he heard it. So there's different versions here exactly how to learn this, but Oi Shashama Vehefer Oi Shashama Veshasak. Either he heard about the neder and he was materit, or he heard about it and he was quiet. Umeis Baviyam, and he died that day. Right, so those are all the options. That's when he dies that day, the rights transfer over to the father-in-law. Right, Zuhi Shashaninu, and that's when we said Meis Habal Nisraiknu Rishus La'av. When the husband, 1 second, when the husband dies, then we put all the rights to be mater neder onto the father.
So the only case that it doesn't work is if he hears about it and says he's happy with it.
Well, then for sure he was making it, right?
Right. So that's the only case it's missing.
Correct.
Is making it.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. That's case number 1. Avol on Talmud Beis now. If the island wants to do the runs, basically the reason why the runs are so long over here is because he's trying, because the Gemara goes through 5 different scenarios about who died first, father, the Baal, and did he hear, did he not hear? So the Ran is trying to go through and of all the different chidushim. What's the chiddush of going through all these cases? So that's why the runs are very long. Aval im shama v'kayim. But let's say the husband heard about the neder and he was mekayim it, like Naftali just said, right? Oy sheshama v'shasak umeis b'yoyim shel acharav. Or he heard about it, but he was quiet. He didn't matter it. He wasn't made for it, and he wasn't mekayim it, right? and then he dies the next day. So then ein yachal lahafer. Then the father cannot be made for the neder, right? Because when he died the next day, so like we said, he only has a day to be made to the neder. So that day passed, so he lost that opportunity. So then it doesn't kick back to the father. And for sure, if he heard about it and he was makayim the neder, so even if he dies, it's not going to kick back to the father, right? So that's all case number one. Case number two, shama aviya v'hafrala. Let's say the father heard about the neder and he was made for it. V'lo hispik bal l'shmoya at shemei sa'av. And the husband never heard about the neder until the father died, right? So again, the father heard about it and was made for it. The husband didn't even hear about it, and now the father died. So zuhi sheshaninu, that's what we taught, that mesa'av lo nisroik rishus labal, that if the father died, the baal doesn't have rishus, which makes sense because the father was makayim the neder. So just because he died doesn't mean that the baal is pointless. It's pointless. What's he going to do, right? Again, what's the chiddush? That we need the round for. Shama, this is now case. This is the third situation, right? Shama baila v'hafrala. Let's say the husband heard about the neder and he was made for it. And then this is going back again on the first case, and it seems to be a little bit repetitive. Again, the husband heard about the wife's neder. He was not the father didn't hear about it until the husband died. So this is what we taught, that meis habal nisraiken rishus la'av, that when the father dies, when the husband dies, then the rishus goes to the father, meaning because the husband didn't even hear about the neder. So then it would transfer over to the father and he could be matir it, and then she goes scot-free. Fourth case, Shama Baila v'hafar law. The husband heard about it, her neder, and he was made for it. And the father was not able to be matir it until he died. Ein habal yachal lahafer, then the husband cannot be mefer. She'ein habal mefer ela b'shutfis.
This is a little schwer, right? Because here it would seem like the exact
It's a little
opposite.
schwer. It's a little
I'm saying,
schwer.
wouldn't this be, if you want to say that previous case is more of a chiddush because he didn't hear, but here it would be less of a chiddush because if in the case before he wasn't able to be made for sure, in this case he shouldn't be able to be made for.
Right. You're right. You're saying there's no chiddush.
I'm saying based on the whole way it's building.
Yeah. The whole understand. I mean, yeah, it keeps bouncing back from one case to the other, the opposites. I don't know why it just doesn't stick with the same.
So I'm saying if you go the opposite way, it's one of them is a chiddush and one is not the other way, right?
Right.
So I'm saying this would be less of a chiddush if you say the other one's a bigger chiddush.
Yeah. That's okay. So then ayin into the Ran, who explains.
All right, I'll get back to you in 3 days.
Anyways, yeah. So again, the last case, Shama Baila v'hafrala. The husband heard about the neder. He was made for it. And the father didn't have an opportunity to hear about the neder until he died. So there ain't a baal yachal lahafer. The baal cannot be made for it. Why? She'ein habal mefer ela b'shutfis. The only way a husband is allowed to be matir the neder is when the father, right, her father also is matir it. Okay, on Tomid Aleph now. Shama,
the Gemara used the lashon as shutfis. So what we can hear would be shver.
You mean it's because it's a shutfis?
It's not.
Yeah,
then it's mashmer the first shot.
Right. It's a very interesting choice of words to call it a shutfis. Right.
If it's shutfis, then it's not weakening. How are you weakening?
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no? I don't know is the name of the game for tonight's stuff.
Yeah.
So Shama, the fifth case, Shama Avia. Here comes the main part of the proof. Shama Avia, the father heard about the neder, and he was made for the neder. And the husband didn't have opportunity to hear about the neder. Ad shemes, until he died. Chayzer ha'av, which is also another interesting lashon. Chayzer ha'av. The father goes back, umefer chelka shel baal, and he can matter the chelik of the husband. Right, so the chayzer is a little bit misleading. What do you mean chayzer? It's not chayzer. Right, he doesn't have to be matter his own. The father heard about the daughter's neder, he mattered it. The husband did not hear about it, and he died. So what I'm saying, so the father can now go be matter the chelik of the husband.
It
Right.
sounds like from here that the father, and these last two cases, is that the father, even you call it shutfus, but the father has a greater bias over her than the husband
Then
to
the
be.
husband.
Yeah,
Yes,
husband to
that's
be,
yeah.
whatever, so he has much stronger koyach,
Correct. Yes,
It could be because he was the first. He was the first.
Was there
buyer.
first. He was there first. He was saying,
Forgetting Yehuda for a minute, that what they did in Yehuda. Why would the Baal have anything to do with it? He has nothing to do with her. They got engaged, and he goes back. He moves to South Africa for a year, and she has nothing to do with the guy. They have nothing to do with each other. The father. She makes it that the father, the guy doesn't hear about it. There's no mail going back and forth. Nothing.
Yeah.
See,
She's
from
usher
the
to the
year
world
to date,
because of
even
him.
after
She's
engagement.
Mekudesh to him. Isn't that what kedushin means? She's usher to the world.
Yeah,
No,
she
she's
is usher to the world.
No, so she's
She
usher
is,
to the
but
world.
That's
So
a huge
father's-
thing.
She's
She's
only
only
12
Mukdesh
years
to
old.
him.
Her father still takes her to the pizza shop. Big
I
deal. She's usher
understand
to
her,
the
but
world.
she's still
So
Mukdesh
it's
to the
a-
world. And
Chayav
Midaraisa,
and
she could
Mizonot?
go ahead and eat. She could go ahead and eat truma. What does that mean?
Right, she could. That's a good point, Taka.
What does that
If
mean?
she-
She's usher to the world.
That's
There's something happening here that she's
Correct,
miyuchat
but
to
there's
him.
nothing happening between him and her. That's what this
Okay,
says.
but what does that have to do? She's usher to the
Okay,
world.
and Hanami, that's
Mukdesh to
clearly
him.
that's
How is it
clearly
not
the
a
way
big
you have to
deal?
say it. That's
She could
clearly the way you have to
she's
say
five
it.
Misa. She goes ahead and goes out and is
Right.
Mizana.
Yeah, yeah. But I do have to point out, though. We do have to point out that the 24 hours or the day that you get is only from when the clock starts only when he hears it. Right? Otherwise it really makes it complicated. You got the chassan lives who knows where. Well, back then all he had to do was live 2 miles away, and they won't get to him within 24 hours. Right? It's only once he hears about it, then the clock starts. Or when the father hears about it, that's when the clock starts. Either way, so the Gemara is clearly saying that the father has much more power than the husband. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says. And now here's where we get to the raya. So Amaram, 3 lines down. So Amaram Nasan, Hein Divrei Beishamai. That's Shitas Beishamai, that the father can go be mater the husband's neder after the husband dies. But Beis Hillel Oimrim Ein Yochel Lafer. Beis Hillel says he's not allowed to. Right? In this case, it does not transfer to the father, and the father cannot be mater the husband's neder. Right? So then what's the eitzah? Nothing. She's stuck.
If
She's
the
stuck.
husband died, if the father died, she was stuck also.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So now
She's
what's
not
the
stuck. She made this net.
She made the
net.
neder.
They will make
That's
it
true.
like that she made a net that she was to jump off the Empire State Building. No, she made a net that she used to eat strawberry ice cream every day for the next 60 years. And she made a net that she wanted. You're believing she's a normal person, right? So she made a net that she wants the net.
Yeah,
It's like big
okay,
spritz,
no, that's
you know?
true because we don't want. Yeah, okay.
Presumably, she could go to Rav to be
We're already
matir.
done now for a few months already. Because she made a neder, she's going to go to her father's house who just died. She can't go anymore.
Okay, whatever
saying.
the scenario is,
Why
it
say
is.
it's a
Shine.
normal neder? We
Okay.
learned this for months without that normal neder.
Yeah.
Did she go to a Rav for Hataras Nedarim?
No.
It seems that the Torah gives a koyak to the father or the Baal, and as that is a more preferred means of being made for her neder than going to be matar neder from your local Orthodox rabbi.
I don't know, but can she?
That's what I think the difference is between Hafara and Hatara. Hafara, to wipe it out completely, that's the husband and the father. Hatara, to be matir and neder is Rabbanon. It's a different thing.
I hear. Okay, could be. I mean, I wish I knew the answer. Should be a pretty should be a pretty basic thing to know, right? Okay. Anyway, so what's the raya? So Shmamina leBeishamai megas, meaning what's the pshat the machlokes, right? Beishamai holds that the father can be matter the husband's chelek. Beis Hillel says no. What's the pshat in the machlokes? So Shmamina leBeishamai megas gayas. According to Beishamai, you cut it up, meaning if one was matter it, then it takes care of that person's portion, and then you have the other neder, right, which is a regular neder. It's the husband's portion of the neder for him to be matter it. So therefore, you can transfer the husband's portion over to the father, and the father can be matter it, right? Because again, we split the neder. You have this neder the lady made. Her father has to be matter.
And we lost him.
Okay,
5 minute
the
rule.
share is over.
Gershon, that was for you.
I guess we don't have to
What?
be worried about being recorded.
We even sensed that you were gonna ask something. Phone died probably.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. The iPad just died. Apologize. So anyways, so again, Beis Shammai is saying that you split the neder in half. The father has half, the husband has half. So since the father was matter the neder, and the other half is a legitimate neder, and the husband died, so the father takes over the husband. That's Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel, Miklash Kolish. Beis Hillel holds no. We don't split the neder in half. When one of them is matter, it weakens the whole neder, right? But the neder is still there, right? But it's not such a strong neder, right? So since it's not such a strong neder, therefore it's not strong enough that it can go into the father. It can go to the father's reshus for him to be matter.
Beis Hillel said make his guys and say you can't transfer.
Why can't he say megas gaius and it can't transfer? What?
Make his guys and lock it what's transferring. Why does it have to go hand in hand?
Okay, I don't know. Because he's saying it seems to be that if you say that it's a pure neder can transfer from the husband to the father. If it's just a weak neder, then it cannot transfer, right? So that's basically what the Gemara is saying. So therefore, what does this all have to do with our Gemara? Because again, our whole shaila was when this neder has to be mattered by the husband and by the father, does each one of them have a chelik in the whole thing? Let's call it that way. Or is it half and half, right? So according to Beis Shammai, we're saying that it's half and half. So since the father was matter the neder, now the husband died, so we can just take that neder then transfers into the father's reshus because there's no husband anymore, right? But according to Beis Hillel, where they both have a chelik in the whole neder, and once one of them is matter, it totally makes the neder not into a legitimate neder. We then don't have, in this part, the way I'm understanding, I have no idea if this is the right way to understand it, but since the whole neder became weakened because the father mattered it, so it's not a legitimate enough neder. There's no vehicle with which to transfer it over back to the father from the husband. So therefore, you can't do it. So Bekitzer Amaisa, the Gemara is saying, Shmami no, that it's a machlokes tanoim, it's a machlokes v'sham v'shillel, how we look at this neder from the husband and the father. According to Beis Shammai, it's each one has half the neder. The father matters half. There's still a complete neder on the husband's end, which can then transfer to the father if the husband dies. Beis Hillel says no. Each one gets half. Each one owns a chelik in every part of the neder. So once one of them matters it lightens up kolish, it lightens up the neder, and since it lightens up the neder, therefore it's not strong enough. It's not your standard neder that can now be. You need the husband to be mevatel his portion. He's no longer alive, so therefore it doesn't work. Shmamina, that's what the din is. Now,
So
why? By the way, it's exeris hakasa. We'll see that on Tuesdays.
I mean, the shaila is if a neder is a two-step process, or a neder is
Two-step
one.
technology, two-step verification. Yeah, that's exactly what the shaila is.
Is
I
it
mean,
too? What?
you want to say it the way Gershon started explaining it, it's sort of like a partnership. What do you look at it? How do you look at a partner? It's not a real partnership, but how do you look at a partnership? Does each partner own a chelik in every little piece, or is it split half and half down the middle? That's essential. Shammai is saying it gets split down the middle. The father's matter his half of the neder. The husband has to be matter his half. If the husband dies, so then his half shifts back to the husband, the father. The Beis Hillel says no. Each one has to be matter every part of the neder. So when the father's matter the neder, so he was matter the entire neder, but only part of me. Well, it's hard to say, but meaning he was matter the neder, but okay, Naftali wants to say 2-ply tissue and he took out 1-ply, maybe. Okay, whatever, right? So it's a weaker neder, and that neder does not have a mechanism or a vehicle with which to transfer back to the father to be matter. So therefore, Beis Hillel says it's each one has its own chelik. So Shema Mina, that's what it is. It's a machlokas tanaim. So now we're halfway down the Amud for tomorrow. Okay, but anyway, if anybody wants to do the Ran, we could stay on and do the Ran. I hope nobody takes anybody up on this on that offer. Anyways, the Olam should have themselves a fine night, and yeah.
Yeshikoyach Yaakov. Yeshikoyach.
Yeah. The
Rad's not so hard. He just goes through every case according to Shammai Beis Hillel.
It's a little complicated. It's a little complicated. Don't make it seem like it's a walk in the park.
Okay, it's a little complicated. It's not the
This
most
is probably
complicated issue we've had.
from what I understand, it's one of the most famous dafim in the Nedarim in terms of complications.
Is
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's famous. Yeah, Yaakov's right. Somebody was telling me this on Shabbos. And then Yaakov, you have to see the Ran at the end. The Ran, the last Ran in this sugya, he says he says, "This is my pirush," and I saw the people that speak about it a lot.
Which one?
And none of it makes sense. And I'm not going to write any of it.
Oh, right here at the end, right before
Yeah.
boy. Yeah.
He said, I saw everyone else who speaks about it. What they write doesn't make sense, and I'm not going to write it.
That Ran I
Well, see, that you saw, you like, you know what? I'll go with that.
I'm not gonna say I read through the whole Ran, but I looked through enough of it to say that I'm never going to get this down, so I might as well stop while I'm ahead. But then I went on the internet, I went on the All Daf, and they have like sometimes shtickl of Taurus. I looked through there and I saw a guy has a synopsis of all the Chiddush of the Ran, and then I started looking at it and I said, yeah, it's not for a Sunday.
You're klishas to das.
Yes, I did. Yes. That's Chatoy Ani Maskir Hayoim. What should I tell you?
I hear.
Anyway.
All right.
Alrighty, everybody. Have yourself fine.
Yeshikoyach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made it through. I can't even tell you how much time I spent just staring at this stuff today. Okay.
Tiago,
Yeah.
On a side note, this is maybe going to be an awkward question. Can you send me a picture of the inside of your mailbox?
The inside? I mean, it doesn't take much imagination.
I know, I'm just trying to see how much room we have in there for a second.